Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. I'd like to call this meeting of the August 10th, 2006 meeting of the Finance Committee to order. If you'll all please rise, I'll ask Councilman George Valentine to lead us in an invocation, after which we'll all recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Bow your heads, please. Father, we are so grateful today, Lord, that you have allowed us to enjoy your wonderful weather. Father, we ask you to guide and direct us tonight. Give us wisdom. Lord, give us courage to do the right things that it takes to bless your people, Father, in Ascension Parish. We ask for our safety of our men and women in uniform, Father, and of course our local law enforcement and people in uniform also, Lord God. We ask a special blessing on them. We ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Suzanne, would you please note that Ms. Stroud is not with us, Mr. Thompson is not with us. I know Mr. Scheck-Snyder is on his way, but at this moment he's not here, and we're also missing Mr. Byriger. Item number 3, there are no chairs additions. Item number 4, the public comment period. As always, we welcome the public here with us today. And if you want to address any one of the agenda items, if you'll see our secretary, Ms. Suzanne Patterson, she has a sign-up card. You can fill that in, put the number or the item that you wish to discuss, and then we'll deal with it at that time when it comes up on the agenda. Okay. Item number 5 is the Lamar Dixon report. In place of Mr. Eddie Crawford, we have Mr. Jody Defis, the account manager, standing in tonight. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford did have a family emergency, was unable to make it. He does give his apologies and says he will be here next time. I'd like to present the June numbers. We did have a down month in June, according to our budget, by $43,700 under budget. Most of this was due to events that were budgeted that either did not occur or were canceled, and also a budgeting mistake of a event being budgeted in this month when it actually happened in the following month. So that event was not canceled, it was just budgeted in the incorrect month. As you can see, the other events of direct event income on the first page is drastically low. That was due to the type of events, mainly the high school rodeo. On the second page, you can see an ancillary income for other events. That's where that amount was made up. That was expected for that type of event. Unfortunately, on financial statements, it does not look very good. As you can see, the Swamp Pop Festival was the event that was budgeted in June when it was actually a July event. Our other operating income on page 2 shows that we were making a $14,000 over budget for our non-event RV hookups, and gives us an $8,400 overage in non-event income. Our indirect expenses were up mainly because of repairs and maintenance that we were doing and advertising that was happening. I'd like to point out on page 3, which is our year-to-date, that we are still ahead of budget by $14,000, and that detail is continued on page 4, where we have a combined income statement of Lamar Dixon and Ascension Parish. This is the same statement that is normally given on our financial statements. What we've done is added some administrative expenses that the parish does to the bottom so that the council can get a combined view of the expenses, both what the parish does and what SMG does operationally. We have included a balance sheet for your information and a year-to-date event report that will give you a total of event days, attendance, income by category for the type of events that we're having for the year.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Defis? There's some additional information here. Did you want to go through that as well, or?
For the balance sheet, this is mainly a year-to-date information showing that we have a total of $755,000 of assets that we're managing. whereas, and it does reflect the contributions that the parish has made, as well as SMG. And it's showing our net loss for the year as of date of $160,000.
Mr. Depps, do you have some events that are scheduled for the remainder of the year where you plan to make up some of this deficit?
We do have some large events coming up this weekend.
And understanding that this
Right.
is June and you had some events in July that
Right.
that are going to reflect later.
Yes, we do have the in the July statements. We'll have the Swamp Pop Festival, which just concluded last month. That was budgeted for June, so it will reflect as income in July. We do have the Homeyer Tool Sale this weekend, as well as later in this month the Dreams Come True Dance, and we do have some other large events scheduled for later in the year that have not been canceled and added to the schedule.
Mr. Hillensbeck, you have a question?
Yeah, how did the Swamp Pop Festival do this year?
The Swamp Pop Festival did relatively well. We had a turnout, I believe, of over 9,000 people.
That's a little better than last year.
Yes,
probably, right?
yes.
Okay. The other question I have is the over 90 days accounts receivable.
Yes.
That amounts to 38,000. What are we doing about collecting that? Do we need to work with our parish attorney on that?
I don't believe so. The two major parts of this are Entergy, which is an amount that's in bankruptcy court. I have dealt with the parish auditor, and we do have that allocated as a bad debt expense in case we cannot collect that.
Right. Yeah, it's a little less than half, the
Yeah.
17,000, but
Right.
okay.
And Humane Society is directly from a Hurricane Katrina bill that has been in negotiation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Depps?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Yeah, Jody.
Yes.
We have a Ascension Parish livestock show out there this weekend. Do you have the times?
Unfortunately, I do not. I do know that it is Saturday, and I know that you can call our office line tomorrow. All day, we'll be able to have that available to anyone that wants to call in and check.
Is that on the website too?
I would believe it would be, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Depps, for that report. We look forward to seeing you again. Okay, we have item number 6. This is our finance department items, the sales and use tax report and the monthly report, and we have our assistant treasurer, Ms. Amanda Barat.
Good evening. You have a the normal sales tax report in front of you. It's for the month of July collections. East Ascension drainage half-cent sales tax. The July collections are 34% over what was over last year's collections. Year to date, we had 24.77%. Sales and use tax, District Number 1, the 1-cent sales tax, with 39.8% over last year's collections, and year to date, with 22.84% over. Sales and use tax, District Number 2, half-cent sales tax, with 42.57% over last year, and year to date with 22.61%. For our budget for the East Ascension drainage, we're currently 22.33% over budget. The 1 cents were 12.58% over, and the half cent with 20.69% over. The next page is just a recap showing the comparing 2005 to 2006 chart, and then the last page is just a comparison over the years. Do you have any questions? The next sales tax chart you have is on a 1 cent sales tax, and this was prepared by our sales tax authority. It's broken down by the types of businesses, and you can see that there's 3 columns that deal with the plants. The plants make up 40.9% of the total collections.
Amanda, in the is there a way to configure this chart so that we could have comparisons to previous years? And I mean, maybe just 2 previous years, so that we can see how consumer retail tax collections compare to, say, 2005, 2004.
I can get with the Gwen to get with the sales
that's
tax
possible,
authority.
because-
Yeah, he
because as
prepared
I-
it. So you want the year comparing by year, like the years?
I would think year to date.
Yeah, this is
a
only for
comparison.
this is only the what's collected for the first 6 months
Right.
of this
The
year.
figure that's here is year to date for 2006 through the end of June, right?
Right.
If there's any way that we could compare it to 2 or 3 previous years, I think that would be beneficial to us.
It's not, the last sheet's not what you're looking for, Mark?
No, I'm talking about this
She's
break,
talking
how it breaks down,
Allocation.
whether, you know, the consumer, retail, general business suppliers,
Oh,
et
okay, I
cetera.
got
That's the comparison that I'm looking for.
I'm sorry.
And that's just so that we can see what sectors of our economy, where the activity is, if there's growth in certain sectors, if there's shrinkage in some sectors. That's what I'm interested in seeing. I mean, if it's possible.
Okay, I'll get with him.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Hillingsworth?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McConnell. I'll tell you what would be helpful, too, for this committee, is to see some projections from the Sales Tax and Use Authority. I know Jordan and I were on the board a few years back, and we got a projection from them of all the taxes, the various millages and what have you, that's going to be collected over the next several years, and involve planned expansions at the plants, that kind of thing.
I know they did a projection on the 1 cent sales tax.
I think we
gave
did
that
do
to you.
that.
I gave that to you
Yeah.
not too long ago, I
Mhm.
think.
Right.
Yeah, we did have something like that.
But this was a chart of many different collections across the parish, and that's I'll bring it to you and let you take a look at
Okay.
it, and
All
it'll
right.
be something good for us to see, I believe. Good information to have. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question for Amanda? There is some additional information, I'm
Okay,
told.
the next
Are
thing
you going
is
to do the monthly?
the monthly report. Actually, this is the second quarter report. Y'all should have got a printout of the green bar line item, each line item detail. I did print it, but I forgot it at the office. I could bring it to Suzanne if anybody wants any. We can either mail it or y'all can pick it up, or if y'all are interested in having it. The revenues so far, overall revenues are at 47% of the budget. Our revenues of the parish are at the anticipated level for the second quarter of 2006. However, our revenues that we receive quarterly, such as our franchise fees, state rebate, beer tax, and state shared severance, are not reflected in these figures because we don't receive them till July. We are still experiencing, as you can see, an increase in sales and use taxes, and we anticipate that the ad valorem tax and building permits will also be increased this year. We will continue to monitor closely the appropriations from the state that may have a reduction due to Hurricane Katrina. And just another reminder that our interest is not allocated to the end of the year, so it won't be reflected in the books. Expenditure overall are at 44%. There are some codes within the department that appear to be over the budget, and of course, again, this is due to encumbrances and acquisitions that have been purchased thus far this year. There are a few line items showing no budget, but the departments are monitoring and have issued some line item transfers to cover that. And just to let y'all know, we have met with each department and distributed their 2006 amended and 2007 budget booklets. We've reviewed their second quarter reports. And during the budget process, they will be making all the necessary adjustments to ensure spending remains in line with their budget. And all the booklets should be returned to our office by August the 17th for us to start compiling into one combined report to review with the president. Does anybody have any questions? Do you want me to go through each thing, or you want to
Ladies, gentlemen, are you interested in as you and I talked about earlier today, are there any items that you feel are out of line that need to be called to our attention?
No,
Amanda?
I don't. I think everything is pretty much in line with the budget as it is. And like I said, we will be making a few corrections basically from motions that were made by the Drainage Board. There are some big items that need to be added to the budget, but that'll be done during the budget process.
But in the report that we have before us, there's nothing out of
No.
line that needs to be called to our attention that we need to address?
No.
Okay. Suzanne, before I call him, please note that Ms. Stroud, Mr. Schexnayder, and Mr. Byriger are all with us. And Mr. Schexnayder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking here on capital outlay for administration and emergency management is at 165 and 135%. Was that a change? Or?
That is the major repairs to the building. They did some work to Bayou Plantation. They actually started it last year, and it didn't get completed, so we will do some line item transfers to move some money to cover that this year.
Okay.
We'll just move it from the operating expense part of it.
That was all that stairwell and the
Right.
new windows and all of that stuff that went in there. Because while percentage-wise it's out a good bit, it's dollar-wise it's not a whole lot.
Right.
Does anyone else have any questions for Amanda? And the detailed report, the detailed printout is going to be beginning Monday at Suzanne's office. And
Unless y'all want me to mail them I can mail them if not.
it's pretty cumbersome stuff. If you can get them to Suzanne, she'll see to it that we receive
Okay.
them.
I have one other thing. I just wanted to introduce to you, we have a new associate that's joined our finance department staff. Her name is Ms. Erin Turo. She'll be working with the on the budget, and during the budget process, she'll be working on that, starting off on that. So that's a big task for her to take on.
So she's going to get baptized by fire.
Correct. We're happy to have her on board and hope she enjoys working with our team to move Ascension Parish forward. Thank you.
I think so. I think she should, and because we're regularly told in all of our audits and the exit interviews and everything, the good staff that we have here in Ascension Parish with in our finance department and the cooperation that you give and the working relationship that you have with our auditing teams and so forth, and we're very proud of that department. And thank you very much, Ms. Turo. We welcome you to Ascension Parish government.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. President.
Just for your information on Erin, she's been working with the Legislative Auditor's Office for the last 6 years, and she is a certified public accountant, so it's going to be a real access to our finance office. And we want to thank Mr. Burt Falk and them for helping us in this search, too. So although you realize we're trying to find some experienced but youthful professional people to come into parish government in 2 or 3 of our departments, and so we're very happy to have Erin with us.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 7, I don't see Miss Audrey Boudreau in the audience. Is somebody here representing a volunteer Ascension who's prepared to make this presentation? If not, we'll pass over that, and if Miss Audrey shows up a little later, we'll just add her to the agenda. Item number 8, we have a contract for pavement marking between Ascension Parish and Pavement Markings Company, Miss Sandra Pereira, Parish Paralegal.
Hello. This is a contract between the parish and Pavement Markings Company, and it's for parish roads for work restriping to be performed, and it's a maximum 30,000. It's a 4-month contract. Attached to it is it's just the display, the price per linear foot, and before the work starts, they'll get together and the parties will agree on what's to be done.
This is a new contract that we are considering here tonight?
This one's new, but they've done work for the parish before.
And essentially we're talking about striping all of the different parking lots and parish-owned
Parish
property.
roads.
This is for roads?
Mm-hmm.
That is?
Parish roads.
Bill, you have something to add to this? Bill, DPW Director, Mr. Bill Roop.
We've brought this to the Transportation Committee as part of our road project, and is a request from the Transportation Committee that we put together a number of roads that's in our system already that needs striping, and this is part of that project, and this is a contract to do that work part of the request from Transportation Committee.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Ms. Cheryl Fontenot to approve this to recommend this contract for approval to the full council. Discussion, Mr. Savoy.
Yeah. Mr. Rue. Bill. Am I reading this right where it's 5,200 linear feet?
No, that's just a breakdown in 5,280th a mile. In other words, is this 20 cents?
That's what it's going to be per mile?
Per mile, it would be that amount of money.
I mean,
actually, 20 cents a foot. And then if you break it into a mile, that's how much it is. The other one is already into, it's broken into the unit of a mile. It's just unit cost for us to figure the price once we give them the number of roads and to verify that the cost when the invoice comes in.
How many miles are we talking about, Bill? Do you have any idea?
It's not that many. I would. Again, it's a minimum. The maximum is $30,000. So the whole project, so you can do some math on it and divide some of this into $30,000. It's just a few miles.
Yeah, there is a maximum I noticed on here for 30,000.
Right. And again, the list was given to Transportation, and I don't have it with us. In fact, if you want me to, if I can bring it back to the Transportation Committee and review the exact roads that we have into the list. But it's some of our main travel roads, Ticketed Plazas, I think, Swamp Road. It's a lot of the roads that's in the system that's not due for repairs this year. But Loose Moor Road, I think, is on it. We're going to do some striping for safety purposes, mainly on the outside of the road, so in bad weather they can see where the edge of the road is, things like this.
So Transportation Committee is meeting next Wednesday.
Right.
So when we bring this up to the council, just attach that road list to it. That ought to be fine. Is there any more discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Then the motion passes, and we'll recommend this to the full council at next week's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Sandra. Item number 9, we have an update on the riverfront development in Donaldsonville by the U.S. Corps of Engineers. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Kent Shakesnyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For approximately about 12, 13 months, we have been working on riverfront development in the Donaldsonville area, and this was a cooperative agreement with the city of Gonzales and the parish. They had monies through grants for 3 areas of to do planning on. One was the riverfront, one was downtown Donaldsonville, and one was Bayou Lafourche area, the headwaters of Bayou Lafourche. And instead of doing 3 separate plans, we decided to pool the money and have the Corps and their people work on one plan that brought in together all 3 so that they would mesh, because we want this project to continue. And this is the results of all of those efforts, and I think Casey is here to present this to us tonight, and you can explain it a lot better than I can. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Kent. Good evening. We have just a few handouts to give out before we get started, and then I'm going to give a brief presentation.
And Mr. Chairman, I might add that the underlying theme behind this is to connect the banks of the river. This is not just the Donaldsonville area. It's also was looked at on all riverfront areas and a way to connect different areas. So that was also addressed.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll quickly introduce our team. My name is Casey Couture, project manager with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in New Orleans. And we have with us this evening Mr. Mark Wingate, Senior Project Manager with the Corps. Mr. Jeff Bell with SJB Group. Mr. Sam Washington with Southern University. Mr. Jay LeBlanc with Shaw Group. Mr. Tom Holden with Holden and Associates. And Mr. Joseph Furr with Joseph Furr Design Studio. We have a quick presentation. I'm just waiting for them to load up. Thank you. I'll quickly go through the agenda. I'm going to talk about past planning efforts as well as the current effort, which falls under our Planning Assistance Estates agreement that we have with Ascension Parish. I'll talk about the Riverfront Committee that was formed, the committee findings, and when those meetings were held. And then I'll go into our recommended plan, what we came away with, which includes 7 programmatic elements and costs, which we broke down into priority 1 elements and additional elements that appear favorable. Then I'll quickly go into the implementation steps, what's necessary to keep this project moving forward, and then I'll wrap it up at that point. As you can see on the screen, these are a few of the past planning efforts that we took into effect and we analyzed during this study. Not all of these were core efforts. The first one was, but we've also looked at quite a few other studies that have been done in the past when developing this project. Also in September of 2000, there was a Senate resolution that was adopted to study improvements along the Mississippi River in the city of Donaldsonville, inclusive of all of Ascension Parish. And from that Senate resolution, Ascension Parish decided to go ahead and move forward with this project, and as Kent mentioned earlier, put up some of their own funds and enter into a Planning Assistance Estates agreement with the Corps, which is a 50-50 cost share program. And that's how this report was developed. In the scope of work, we outlined quite a few things that we would develop with this plan, including the formulation of several plans, and from that some conceptual documents, and ultimately come away with a recommended plan and put some rough order of magnitude costs to those for the key elements. We also did a preliminary economic analysis and put together an implementation strategy, which identified some potential funding sources to move this project into construction, and also some where to next scenarios. As I mentioned earlier, a Riverfront Committee was formed once we were under agreement with the parish, and that Riverfront Committee mainly consisted of a steering committee with Kent Steckschneider as being our main point of contact with the parish, and as well as the city of Donaldsonville. We worked very closely with the mayor and his staff. And then it also consisted of our design team that I introduced earlier. The meetings that were held, you can see them listed here, but back in October, we established and presented to the Riverfront Committee our project goals and visions, and we also identified programmatic elements. And then again in November of 2005, we came back and presented our inventory and analysis of the existing conditions in the area, introduced some opportunities and challenges. We discussed that quite a bit, and then we came up with some preliminary conceptual plans. In December of 2005, we refined those conceptual plans. We got some feedback and presented those again to the Riverfront Committee. And then we spent the majority of our time from February to May advancing our recommended plan. And I'll just go into the recommended plan itself. It addressed improvements throughout all of Ascension Parish, and we did focus a lot of our activities for the riverfront area in the city of Donaldsonville, which we called our hub of activity, and that contained the 7 programmatic elements I mentioned earlier. We pretty much considered this a wish list, and we broke them into priority 1 elements and then additional elements that appeared favorable. These 7 programmatic elements are listed here. We considered the priority 1 elements elements that are ready to go to engineering and design and ultimately construction. And then and I'll list those briefly, the levee top improvements. We actually have the plans and specs ready to go on that. The Corps did not develop that. That was developed by the Crestworth engineers. And I believe they have some capital outlay funds available to get that go into construction. The second item is what we call the Batcher development, which includes site improvements, a dock at Donaldsonville, and festival venue with the amphitheater. And then the third item is the natural recreation area, which is located in the same vicinity, just upstream a bit. And then we also, I'm going to go into all these in detail, but we have additional elements that appear favorable, which consisted of docks not just at Donaldsonville, but directly across the river and also upstream as well. And then levee top, we presented levee top pedestrian trails on both sides of the river. I think that's approximately 36 miles or so. And then also the landside development in Donaldsonville and Fort Butler and Bayou Lafourche. This is the general vicinity of the hub of activity that we focused on in our report. This is what we're calling our first priority one element. Here you can see some of the plans that have been proposed, that have been developed already. We're estimating a construction cost for this at approximately $500,000. And this is a levee top improvement that consists of lighting, benches, trash receptacles. And I believe the length on that is about 2,300 feet. This is a rendering that we put together on the Batcher development. We have some preliminary rough order of magnitude cost on this to prepare the actual Batcher area. We're looking at about $2 million to develop a dock at Donaldsonville, another about approximately $2 million. Amphitheater, we have a range of costs here depending on whether that amphitheater would be built out of earthen material or a pile-driven structure. And then also the natural recreation Batcher area. We estimated about $800,000. So for the total Batcher development, we're looking at somewhere between 10 and 19 million, which would also ultimately be awarded in multiple construction contracts. The next slide just shows a view of the dock itself, which we designed to represent the architecture from the Donaldsonville historical structures. It would service river tour boats, paddle boats, water taxis, and it was designed to consist of a floating platform that would rise and fall with the rise and fall of the river. And that walkway that you see connecting to the actual dock would link to the Batcher area as well as the amphitheater, if that were to be built. This next slide shows the festival venue area. This is an area that could possibly include festivals, church fairs, fireworks shows, etc. We also show the amphitheater here. I believe this is the raised structure, which could hold approximately 3,500 people and would not be subject to flooding that connects to the dock as well as the levee. We also felt like this was a great opportunity to connect Crescent Park up and over the levee and serve as a gateway to our project. Also shown here are some paved pathways for potential exhibits, games, concessions, etc. Another priority one element would be the natural recreation Batcher Park just upstream from the festival venue, and that would include more of a passive area for recreation, such as picnic sites and RV campsites, interpretive signage, things of that type. Under this study, we also completed a flood stage computer animation of what this would look like at different times of the year. The first, I don't know if you can see it very well, but the first animation shows the river stage at 25 feet, which we anticipate to occur every year. So as you can see there, the majority of the Batcher area would still be accessible to the public. The second slide shows how it would look approximately every 2 years with an additional 1 to 2 feet of water. Again, most of the Badger area still would be accessible. And then the last animation shows when the river is 28 feet or greater, which is anticipated to occur every 3 years, the majority of the Badger area would be underwater on average for approximately 17 days. But the amphitheater and the dock would still be accessible. The next few items I'm going to go through, we did include in our document, but we feel that they are favorable and warrant further study. This first item is the parish-wide docks and the levee top trails. To the left, you can see we did some renderings on various water taxi docks. This is just one of a few that we did put together. And we're estimating that approximately each one of those docks will cost about $1.4 million. And in the picture on the right, you can see where the stars are located is possible water taxi docks, which is directly across from the Donaldsonville area where we propose the festival area be built, as well as just upstream at the Homeless House. We spoke with Mr. Kelly over at the Homeless House on possibly putting a dock there as well. We felt that those are key linkages. Also, you can see some paths that would go on both the east and the west side of the river, and up and downstream to connect to key linkages throughout the parish. And again, that cost is about $12.5 million just for the levee top trails, and that's about 36 miles. This is the river, what we're calling the Landside Development District in Donaldsonville. We spent quite a bit of time on this as well, developing 3 different zones, if you will, on the eastern side of the downtown area. We consider that mostly to be business type facilities. Then we have a central zone, which again encompasses Crescent Park, which is the gateway to the Batcher, and that would lead the people from the land side of the river over into the festival venue, and that would consist of some retail. And then on the western end, some mixed-use residential, light commercial. And during these plans, we also took advantage of what some of these high-rise condos could do for such views of the river, as well as maintaining the historic district character. And we're estimating those to be about $43 million. Additional elements that appear favorable, again, we looked at Bayou Lafourche and Fort Butler. The linear parkway along Bayou Lafourche, we proposed some dining areas, retail shops, farmers market, some walking paths and small boat landings along that area. Senator Landrieu currently has a plan proposed that I'm sure all of you are aware of to beautify that area, and this would be in conjunction with that plan. Fort Butler, we also looked at placing an interpretive center there that would maintain the historic representation and link the riverfront park with Bayou Lafourche. In this study, we also went into some implementation steps for these priorities. How do we get this done? The first implementation step is obviously the levee top construction. The plans and specs are already available. That's viewed as our step 1 at approximately $500,000. We recommend that the capital outlay funds be used for construction for that, and we estimated about a 9-month duration for that construction. So that's a real thing that can happen now. Step 2 is to complete engineering design for the riverfront project, inclusive of the Donaldsonville dock and the Batcher area. Plans and specs would need to be created for that, and that's considered the step 2 and 3. The parish or city and/or city should secure approximately $1.6 million for that engineering design, and we estimate again another 9-month duration to complete the plans and specs for that. And finally is to initiate the construction of those steps 2 and 3. And again, I'll just reiterate that those could be awarded in multiple construction contracts. And the total cost on that is $10 to $19 million. And finally, I'll go into the implementation steps for the additional elements. We feel that further planning for the landside development for Butler and Bayou Lafourche corridor plans are necessary. We did develop some initial concepts under this project, and we do feel that additional planning would be recommended to find out if it's economically, environmentally, and constructible. 2 items here that we identify in the report: developing a marketing strategy. We feel like that should be a priority also. That needs to happen. That will create the energy and momentum for the project to continue forward. And that can be used to market the project in many different areas. And finally, the organizational structure. A full-time person we recommend, or entity, that could commit to this project from the beginning to the end to see that all of these items do go through to construction. And we pursue that person or entity could pursue the project authorization and funding at all levels, and develop public and private partnerships and investment to market this project full time. And in conclusion, I'd just like to reiterate that the recommended plan was developed with city parish input, as well as many others. We had quite a few eyes looking over this project since, I think it's been about 12 or 13 months. The priority 1 elements were found to be feasible economically, environmentally, and constructively. That's what we found in this report. The city is encouraged to move forward with step 1, the levee top improvements. Very close to becoming a reality. It's $500,000, which is a small dollar amount in the big scheme of things. The city parish is encouraged to complete the engineering design and ultimately constructions of step 2 and 3, which is the dock and batcher area. And we hope that following through with the construction of all 3 of these steps would create the momentum necessary to complete the remaining phases. Where to next, I'd just like to end with saying that we did present to the Donaldsonville committee, and they adopted a resolution, I believe it was earlier this week, just a couple days ago, accepting this riverfront plan. SJB also provided Senator Landry with a draft report at the request of the mayor of Donaldsonville, and the senator remains supportive of this project and continues to seek the authorization and appropriations. And tonight we'd like to present these reports, which we handed out earlier, and we have a few more for Kent to distribute to anybody else who may not be here tonight. And we're calling this a 99% report. We'd like for you all to review it and approve it and get back to us within the next 2 weeks. And I've included my information here, and I'll leave it as well. And then we'll incorporate those comments and provide a final report at the end of August.
Mr. Shakespeare, you still have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you, Casey, for that. And also, and I didn't mention, even though she did, Southern University was very instrumental in sending representatives and working with us on individual design things and ideas as we went through all of this. And there was a great deal of people working very hard and a lot going back and forth. And I would just like to see, after all of this work, that we would adopt this as our master plan, so to speak, so that we would all be speaking with one voice as we go and try to attract grant monies for projects. And the concept is already there. The next step is to get design money to actually work these concepts out, and then you go to construction. And a lot of times people don't, as I did, I was ready to get started constructing right away. And I found out very shortly that that's just not the way it works when you're dealing with Congress. And the first thing you have to do is complete a very detailed concept plan. And what this does, it justifies getting money from Congress. And you present that. And that's what this report is. After that justification study, then you can get design money. and that tells you exactly what you're going to do. It's sort of like the specs of your house, and then you go on for construction. And so we're at this early stage, but we want it to continue. We don't want it to be put on a shelf. We want things to continue. As money becomes available, it has a plan that's already there, and we can start doing something positive.
Thank you, Mr. Shake Snyder. Mr. Byriger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to offer a motion to send this conceptual plan to the full council for adoption.
There's a motion by Mr. Byriger to recommend this plan, and second by Ms. Fontenot to recommend to the full council. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Stroud. Apologize for that. Mr. Lambert, you had a... That's okay. Is there any further discussion on this?
Yep.
Mr. Savoy.
Yeah. Mr. Shea Snyder, can you share with us who the members of the committee are? They said that you formed a committee or to work on
the people that actually went to the meetings. We had the planning department from the parish. We asked representatives to be there. Myself and the other West Bank councilman, Mayor Sullivan and his assistants, and Carl Capone represented the city as their workers, Southern University, SJB, Mr. Furr, and the Corps of Engineer. And did I leave anybody out? Mr. Holt, I'm sorry. And Tommy Kurtz with our economic development came, and everyone had input. Everyone looked at the plans as they evolved. And we went from, we thought the most important thing is to establish an area, a natural area, that as much as possible would be accessible on the Bachelor side, which is what people want to see. And my experience is, we take it for granted, but every time you get visitors from out and you talk to them, they said, man, I went and I saw the Mississippi River. I touched the water. And so people want to be next to the water, and that's a good drawing card from there. And so we wanted to make it as natural as possible and something that that was very attractive and very useful without a whole lot of maintenance for the Bachelor side. The land side would be more of a public-private cooperation, where you would have private investors coming in, knowing the concept plan that would be for the river, and the big push is to get a river boat to dock here. The Mississippi Queen or whoever that would dock on a regular basis would supply an influx of money, and then you would get private investors to build either condos or businesses or things like that they're doing now at all of the riverfront areas. And you're starting to see people going back to the historic areas in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Natchez, and all along the river. And we found out after a period of time by visiting and talking with other cities, Port Allen and Vidalia in Tennessee, that you just have to be doggedly determined to continue with the process and not let it drop. What happens after a period, I mean, it's not something that's going to happen in 1 year. It probably happens over 7 or 8 years. And if you get tired and after 3 or 4 years you let it drop, nothing is actually constructed. So this is a long process, and we're starting, but we want to continue it, and that's why people have been meeting, and we want to continue to set meetings on a quarterly basis now until we get some type of funds to continue to meet once a month.
And you also said something about the estimated construction costs for the pathway.
Yes, sir.
I think you said something like 2,200 feet, linear feet.
Yes, that's the plans and specs that have already been developed by Crestworth Engineers.
And that's estimated at 500,000?
Yes.
2,200 feet?
Yes. It's approximately 2,300, if I have my numbers right.
All right, that just seems, I realize we're on top of the 11, there's some, the specifications are going to be much stringent than a regular, but that just seems a little high, on the high end, but that's.
And I would question, why is that?
We actually built a very similar project in Port Allen, which is about 1,600 feet. One thing we have to keep in mind, it's much more than just a path. You have the steps to get up to the path. You have steps possibly to get down. There's lighting. There's water lines that are brought in for drinking and so forth. The project in Port Allen that we built several years ago was very similar in price, so it gave us a real good benchmark for the project. We've got patterned concrete, asphalt path, 10-foot wide on top of the levees, run us about $300,000 a mile. So it's a good point. You know, it's considerably less than a mile, but you have more features than just a 10-foot path.
All right. So, I mean, the next mile could be much less because you're not going to have all the amenities.
Yes, sir.
Right there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this: on the Batcher side, as far as the elevation of 25 feet to 26 and up to 28 feet, how much monies are we talking about spending on the Batcher side to get it where we're looking at here, the completion of the Batcher side? How much money are we talking about? And the reason why is because we need to bring these questions out, because the public, you know, if you go out and show the public that we're going to spend X amount of dollars and somebody flashes up this particular picture, and then it's going to throw a red flag up. So we want to understand, we need to explain a little more exactly what we're looking at there, because I don't want to go off in the wrong direction. I first step in the wrong direction here. So that needs to be a little further discussed.
And that's a good question. That was something that was discussed a great deal. And one of the things about it, we decided instead of building a lot of buildings and such, that we would do more natural, taking the land and shaping it naturally with walkways and everything, and that regardless of the height of the water, the amphitheater and the dock would be available at all times. The rest of the area is basically used for fairs, events that would be at certain times of the year, and during the times that you would normally have the floodwaters, you probably wouldn't schedule things that would be along that area, which would be a short time of the year. And I don't know, you may want to comment more on that.
Yeah, I'm Joey Furr, one of the planners and that worked on the project. And one of the things that we set out to do early in the process is to develop something that was reasonable from a cost standpoint. So many of these plans get a visioning process takes place, and there's things that are developed that are really unreasonable in terms of cost. And one of the things we wanted to do was be able to utilize the land that exists, because and that's one of the reasons that Donaldsonville became the center of the project, because it is the most accessible large area of available Batcher site. So knowing that we wanted to use that and knowing that it does flood, we want to be cognizant of what those levels are going to do to us. The fact that it gets to 27 every 3 years, one of the things that needs to be looked at in terms of what we were presenting with those drawings, and we actually did computer animations, is that that's once every 3 years for a period of 17 days. We were faced with a project that was ultimately going to be taken to Congress to be funded, and we were working on a project in the days just prior to and just post-Katrina. So we realized that anything having to do with building anything inside a levee in South Louisiana would be looked at with a jaundiced eye in Congress. So we wanted to look at those elevations so that we could say, yes, we understand the systems, the natural systems of this project, and that they are going to flood, and we're going to build something that every 3 years would be out of play for roughly 2.5 weeks. Instead of the other scenario would be to try and build something that would stay out of the water all of the time, which would cost, hundreds of millions of dollars, which we felt was an unfeasible thing. So value for the money you spend, and the other thing is you usually know the times of years that the river's going to be up at that level. When it does happen historically, you can look at the river stages and tell that. So it would be a thing where events just wouldn't be planned in those types of years, because there's a risk that you may not be able to do them. But during the majority of the year, that land would be developed. So I guess it's all how you look at that particular drawing. But we would say that it was shown to prove the point that it is a viable thing to do, to spend this money for every 3 years. We may not be able to use all of it for 2 or 3 weeks. So. And we want to make sure that the people in Washington that may look at it would say, yeah, these guys have figured out what's happening with the river, and they realize it might flood. And it would be built so that the flood would not damage it. So.
Mr. Hillensbeck has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very good plan, and I know it's something that's going to not only help the west side that needs the help, but it's also going to benefit the remaining part, the eastern part of the parish as well. I guess my question is in going after these funds, and I realize this is just a vote of this committee, it's still got to go to the council, but in going after these funds, does this in any way obligate us to local matching funds from the parish?
No, not at this time.
Not at this time. Do we
Well-
have any idea what it's going to cost us matching funds down the road? I asked that question because at a previous meeting, Muddy Creek Bridge raising was turned down because the issue was raised. We don't know how much the local match was going to be. And that.
You know, certainly it's a function of how much
I'm
project
just
you
asking,
build.
I mean, making a point.
The first phase is what we're talking about. Those $500,000 exist at capital outlay, so the city's pursuing that money.
Mm-hmm.
The next step is to try to go seek money to do the engineering and design. Most likely, now we're making an assumption how Congress may authorize this, if in fact they authorize it, but if Congress authorizes it, and it's typical of recreation law, if you will, you'd be 50-50 on the cost share. So you would require a 50% match.
So on a plan we're looking at between $10 and $19 million, and we could be looking at as much as $10 million from the parish.
That's correct. Or from some local source, or some non-federal source. That's
Partnership
correct.
with the city of Donaldsonville.
Well, there's a number of ways.
Well, the parish and the city.
There's in-kind, they figured on some in-kind services that you have by putting up the land. There's different phases that you do. Probably the first thing, well, definitely the first thing is that they want to dock a riverboat there so that revenues can come in and people can come in and use that. And that's a small amount of the total cost. And so this would be done in these phases where you would get a certain amount of monies, and you can use some things as in-kind, some things as matching funds, and there's a number of ways to do it. If you have the right plan, you may get more private assistance than you would if you don't have a good plan. We had a couple of people that came during this process were private developers interested in developing the riverfront, and they were interested in the end result. One of the other things we were looking at, and again, Mr. Hillensbeck mentioned it's going to help the whole parish, because right now we're getting a concentration of people moving in the northern part of the parish, and it's choking that area of the parish. And we need to have some type of attraction to attract people to different areas of the parish and do things to spread out the population and make us a more viable parish and a better place to live. And so this is another way to ease. We talk about building roads to handle the people, but if you also do some things to encourage people to live in different areas, then you don't have to spend as much money on roads and infrastructure and other things. You can spread the people out, and this is one of the ways that you can do that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments?
One question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Casey, is it?
Yes.
I guess the bottom line is, if the council adopts this as part of our master plan for Ascension Parish, what is the financial liability of the parish between now and the completion of this plan?
That would depend on the authorization, if y'all were to get any specific congressional authorization for
So
construction.
the total cost of this plan, I didn't add it all up as we went. The parish could be responsible for half of the cost of this overall plan?
The parish or another entity, yes, non-governmental.
Another entity being the city?
Non-federal. It could possibly be a combination of the city, parish, or others.
So if this governing authority next Thursday night, for example, would vote to make this part of the quote-unquote master plan for Ascension Parish, would they be in any way obligating the present administration, governing authority, and future administrations to find funding for this plan?
From our perspective, no. All you're authorizing is that this is a plan y'all would support. Depending upon the features that go forward, you're not obligating yourself to go forward with any of this. Future agreements would have to be executed to do each of these construction phases.
The capital outlay money you're talking about now at the state level, What category is it in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I understand it's some in 2 and some in 5.
So 5 means,
I understand you'd rather it cash, which I believe is the 2, and I may stand to be corrected.
2 is not cash. 2 is the ability to go out and bond money.
Okay.
1 is cash. In the House Bill 1. So none of it's in cash.
You'd have to check with the city on that. They've been working closer on it.
So do I understand then that we really don't have this first 500,000? All
No,
we have is the money that's been passed through the parish 3 or 4 years ago? For the actual
You've had
cash?
that, and certainly the other investments. The city did receive $50,000 to put the plans and specs together for the Phase 1 from state capital outlay. My understanding is the state then is committed. They do have money in capital outlay. I'm not certain of what priority it's in. I believe it was some in 2 and some in 5.
Yeah. Could you get that information
sure
to
can.
me in this body
Sure.
between now and next Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Hillinsback?
Yeah, just one more question. Let's say there was an appropriation for half of the money, and if the parish could not come up with that, we could opt out at that time and decline it, right?
Certainly.
Yeah, right.
Certainly.
So we wouldn't be obligated.
Again, not until we execute an agreement would you be obligated. We're not asking or seeking any agreements at this time.
When you anticipate seeking an agreement?
The earliest, you're probably looking about 2 years, and that would be the soonest.
The what? The
That
soonest?
would be the soonest.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? When the motion passes, we'll recommend this to the full council and discuss it again next Thursday night. Next item on our agenda is item number 10, which is the proposed budget for the August 17th, 2006 meeting. There's a typographical error on the copy you have in front of you. That meeting will be held here in Gonzales and not at the school board office in Donaldsonville.
Who done that?
If you show up in Donaldsonville, you won't be part of the action, as they say. Does anybody have any changes, additions, subtractions, deletions, clarifications, Mr. Valentine?
I have an addition. I'd like to put executive session personnel matters as the last agenda before adjourning, and would like Ricky Babin, Mr. Roy Katz, our Human Resource Director, Richard Brown, to attend that. Executive session personnel matters.
I guess I'd like a ruling. Mr. Babin's not with us right now, but
If there's something that has to be done, I've discussed it with Mr. Babin today. We can do that between now and the meeting time. And if there's some problem with it, we'll pull it off the agenda.
All right, just to know how specific we need to be
Right.
when announcing
Who needs to
executive
be
session.
notified, I understand.
Precisely. Thank you, sir. Does anyone else have any changes? Mr. Byrigger?
Yes. If we could, under Utilities Committee, we're going to be taking up the LCDBG grant on the Hillerville project Wednesday, and we may have a resolution to that funding. So I'd like to put it on the agenda just in case we do, because it is a time-sensitive matter as far as the bid that's out there. And so we need to put that on there in case we do come to some type of resolution in committee Wednesday the 16th. And that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Savoy?
Yeah, as far as the public hearings on the electronic submission coming from planning and zoning, I'm going to ask that you review it. If you got any questions, you might want to jot it down because I'm going to get us through these as quickly as I can. And, okay? I'm asking Mr. Babin if there's any other way that I can present all these in some other form or fashion, but I'm not getting any cooperation from him as of right now. But, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm trying.
And I appreciate that, and the fact that you're going to have a singing gavel next week, Mr. Savoy. Ms. Fontenot?
Exactly what are these ordinances about, and have they been through committee?
Yeah.
They have been through committee. Your committee?
Yes, this is to streamline. This is where they're changing it to where the developers and the contractors has to come in and submit their plans electronically, and that is to streamline our department or their department to where you can get real-time data, whereas right now whenever they submit a plat or their plan, it may take them 4 to 6 months to do their manual work. Okay, whereas going electronically, it's going to streamline their operation tremendously. There's not going to be no additional software, hardware, equipment because it's already in place. The only thing that's going to be is possibly some upgrading on some training.
So this has been through planning and zoning?
It's been through planning.
Yeah.
and zoning,
Okay.
correct.
That's the committee?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, planning and zoning can recommend to the council.
Yes,
And,
I'm just
and
asking.
strategic planning had no objection to presenting it.
Does anyone else have anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think item 22 and 23, when we reviewed this in our staff meeting today, really supposed to be under the Strategic Planning Committee. I understand that's coming forth as recommendations from that committee. Am I correct, Mr. Shakespeare? And not under the parish president per se.
Actually, I sit on strategic planning, and we discussed that at the last strategic planning committee, but I don't know that it was ready to come as an introduction of an ordinance. I don't think we.
I was notified of those three, the burning ordinance and the abandoned vehicle ordinance and those that Mr. Babin was going to be preparing ordinances to be presented at the August 17th meeting.
Oh, no.
No.
My understanding was that he was preparing them
Ordinance for the
to be
committee.
brought back to strategic planning for
Yes.
further
Right, I think we want to
consideration.
run those ordinances by the sheriff's
correct.
office and get some input.
Exactly,
from them
yeah,
as
we had a
well.
lot more input. So could,
So y'all want me to pull those?
Yes,
pull,
please.
please, pull those. I don't think
Yeah.
they're ready.
We're pulling, which ones we're pulling?
22, 23, and 24.
24 too?
Wait, I'm
No,
sorry.
not
No.
24.
This is the flood
22 and
ordinance.
23.
Drainage ordinance.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Just 22 and 23, Suzanne, please, on
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the junk cars and the burning. Mr. Lambert?
Yeah, Mr. Shakes, not on the drainage ordinance, we had about 3 items that we sent back for maybe some changes. I hadn't seen them changes come back to us.
That-
And I see this is on the agenda, and I want to know if this is going to be an amended ordinance from the
Well,
original?
Mr. Root, the drainage ordinance, the adjustments Mr. Laverne had talked about, and all of the minor technical aspects, has that been sent out for councils to look
I'll have
over?
to check with Mr. Sanchi.
Can-
I can't comment. I know the final document that came from Michael was reviewed by DPW, and we're in agreement with that final document.
Can you see that it gets to all of the councilmen
Mhm.
as quickly as possible so that it can be reviewed? And
I'll call Mike up in the morning and have his office send it out. Because he has the most recent and he'll have the comments.
yeah, I think he was, Ms. Suzanne, can you make sure that that gets to everyone involved? It was supposed to be sent
I
out,
think
and I didn't get,
The crucial one was being in a flood zone, the pad and
It's the
10 feet
pad.
around the house could be hauled in. Wouldn't
Right.
have to be dug either with a pine or,
Right.
you know,
They had that
slope
issue.
the property.
They had that issue, and then the
That
question was asked to raise the frequency for having to from a 10-year to a 25-year or 5 to 10-year on your covers inside your subdivisions. But I think that was resolved in the fact that there's one statement in there saying that we got that right to do that on a case-by-case basis. So instead of making it universal, DPW and the Drainage Board can review it and raise the frequency to 25-year, 50-year, or 100-year if we need to. So that was resolved, but I'll have to check on that other the pad. I think that was okay.
Mr. Lambert, to answer your question, he had said that he had okayed it, and I had not seen the final written version of it,
I
and
guess
so.
the other one was if a homeowner built, he would have to have a impact study, same as what a subdivision would have. You know, if he's in a flood zone, he'd have to hire an engineer to come out and do a impact study on drainage. That was one of them that was in that.
Right, but I think
This
that
is, say, a family partition, homeowner, not subdivision.
He would have to have a plan if they're going to move dirt within the floodplain, not
But an
necessarily.
engineer, he would have to hire, a homeowner would have to hire an engineer to come out and give him a drainage study
In some cases,
if he's in the flood zone.
in some cases.
That was brought up also.
I don't remember
Outcome.
what was resolved and
if-
if the vote was to change it or not.
The nuts and bolts of that, and we'll see the final version, is that if there are substantial changes, then they would have to do that. But if it's something that our planning department, DPW, takes a look at, and there's not a normal situation, then they wouldn't have to.
Just make sure we get this ordinance.
Are we sure we're ready to introduce this ordinance?
I hadn't seen these revisions, that's why I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, maybe this also needs to go back to,
It's fine with me. It does not matter. It was supposed to be in our hands by now, and I'm disappointed that it's not back in our hands. All of these things we've agreed on, and but if we don't have it in our hands, I would
what's
like
the
to
wish
see
of the
it.
council? Yank it?
Yank it to the next meeting.
Yeah, please. Let's pull that item as well and finalize that at strategic planning.
It also needs an author when it comes back to us. Because nobody's wanting to take
This is an orphan.
representative, yeah.
It's an
We
orphan
need an
ord-
author when it
ordinance.
comes back to the table.
You
let there
can
be
put
an
my
author.
name on it, Ms.
Right.
Suzanne. I've been involved in this.
That is the strategic planning has
I've been
spearheaded
tasked from the
that.
council to take care of this. I will accept that responsibility.
Mr. Chairman.
Just Ms. Stroud.
I have a question. Mr. President, during your parish president's report, can you give us the status of the emergency preparedness with reference to the hurricane and what we're going to do? I think I had asked for that once before. Can you add that, or we can have a separate presentation as to just where we stand?
We'll plan a separate presentation, but obviously some things have come up in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ms. Fontenot, you had a...
I didn't see Mr. Rue was still here a while ago when we were going over the committee reports. We too will have a transportation meeting next Wednesday. Do you know of anything that needs to be on the agenda that would be coming on the committee? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything that was timeline that needed to go. You don't know of anything? Okay, that's all, Mr. McConnell.
All right. If there's nothing further, we can skip items 11 and 12. And item 13, Mr. Byriger.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much for being here. I think we're going to convene the Personnel Committee in a moment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 10 minutes.